This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Grant. We're going to begin this half hour in the Middle East. Israel will fight through to victory against Hamas, even if the whole world turns against it, including the United States. That's a promise from the leading Israeli government official. That pledge comes as the United Nations is set to vote today on a resolution sponsored by the United States calling for a ceasefire in the war in Gaza. Paul Strand has the story. He's reporting from Jerusalem.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is making it clear ahead of the UN vote that a ceasefire and hostage deal is a top concern for the U.S.
There's a clear consensus around a number of shared priorities. First, the need for an immediate, sustained ceasefire with the release of hostages.
While there could be a pause in the war, the feelings of hostility toward Israel remain, as new polling shows most Palestinians are still on the side of Hamas. 71% of Palestinians in Gaza and Judea and Samaria, known as the West Bank, say Hamas made the right decision to launch the attacks against Israel on October 7th. 94% think Israel has committed war crimes during the current fighting, but 91% do not think Hamas did. In fact, 93% say Hamas did not commit the atrocities seen in the videos of October 7th. But among Palestinians who have seen those videos, 17% believe Hamas fighters did commit atrocities against civilians. As the fighting continues on the ground in Gaza, Israel says it captured some 650 suspected terrorists in the military operation at the Shifa hospital this week, including top Hamas officials.
Many Hamas terrorist operatives and senior ones have been hiding in the hospital. And also Islamic Jihad group has been hiding in this hospital.
And Israel says it carried out the operation without any harm to civilians, even those working in the hospital.
Civilians, doctors, medic teams, none have been hurt.
And while Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has made clear Israel must launch an assault on the last Hamas stronghold in the city of Rafah in Gaza, Secretary of State Blinken made it clear before arriving in Israel today the U.S. does not support such an invasion.
A major military operation in Rafah would be a mistake, something we don't support, and it's also not necessary to deal with Hamas, which is necessary. We're going to have an opportunity next week to share in detail that view with our Israeli counterparts and to lay out our views on how to deal with the problem differently.
But Israeli Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer says Israel will go into Rafah no matter who opposes it.
Even if the entire world turns on Israel, including the United States, we're going to fight.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Chris Mitchell joining us now from Jerusalem with more. So, Chris, Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Israel, and he is meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ahead of this UN vote. What points will likely be discussed in this meeting from both sides?
Well, Ephraim, I think from Paul's report, we know that one of the number one issues is going to be Rafah. The U.S. wants what they say will be a credible plan to protect the more than 2 million Gazans in that city. They want humanitarian aid to get into there. Israel is going to say, on the other hand, that they need to go into Gaza to actually defeat Hamas. Israel will likely also say that they're sending more aid. But what's happening is that the UN agencies inside Gaza can't distribute that aid. Much of that aid, Israel's going to say that the Hamas is stealing it, using it for themselves. And as I said, Israel really has been making the point over and over. They can't win the war without going into Rafah, defeating those last 4 battalions of Hamas. And I just wanted to add to what Ron Dermer said in that quote. They remember history. They remember the Romans. They remember, all the people that have come against them. And right now they're celebrating the Feast of Purim. And they remember Haman, who wanted to destroy the Jewish people. And they cite throughout thousands of years of Jewish history that whether it's Haman or Hitler or Herod, the Jewish people have survived, and they think they'll survive Hamas and even Hezbollah.
Chris, we've seen and shared the reports of terrorists being captured hiding in the Shifa hospital. What was done to protect civilians in this operation?
Well, Ephraim, one of the first things they did is they sent leaflets to people that were surrounding that hospital compound. It's very large there in Gaza, and they wanted them to get out of harm's way. They have also provided food, water, and medicines to the people inside the hospital. They've tried to move patients out of harm's way, and all in the meantime, while capturing hundreds of terrorists, many of them senior Hamas leaders. They've killed many Hamas terrorists inside there as well. So it's an example of what Israel has been doing all along in its military operation, trying to defeat Hamas as it uses civilians as human shields, but also trying to target Hamas terrorists while they do that. So it's a very difficult maneuver for the IDF and special forces, but that's all those things and more they're doing to try to protect civilians while trying to defeat Hamas.
All right, an incredible busy week there, Chris. What can we look forward to this evening on Jerusalem Dateline?
Well, we're going to have an update story on the latest. We're also going to have an interview with George Thomas, our CBN senior international correspondent. We talked to him earlier today up there in South Lebanon. He gave us an analysis of what's happening on the war front, and he also gave us really an exclusive sense of what's happening with the Christian community there in South Lebanon. We'll also have a story on Kiryat Shmona, on the other side of the border in Israel. It's a town of about 24,000, 21,000 of them have left. Only about 3,000 remain. Just a story of how many people have left that area and what it looks like for war. And finally, we have a story about Shema. Yesterday, millions of Jews around the world prayed that prayer out of Deuteronomy for the protection of the IDF soldiers and peace here in the land.
All right. I want to remind you at home that you can see the latest from Jerusalem Dateline tonight on the CBN News Channel. It begins at 8 Eastern. Thank you so much, Chris. You can also watch the show on the CBN News app, or you can watch it on YouTube. I want to turn now to other news. This in Haiti. It remains a country in crisis with little relief in sight. Thousands of orphans are among those stranded. Although the U.S. Embassy is now closed, one ministry is working to bring more than 100 of them to this country. CBN's Jenna Browder reports on this uphill battle.
Turmoil in Haiti. The capital city of Port-au-Prince reeling from gang warfare, with life for locals growing more dangerous by the day. Among the most vulnerable, Haiti's orphans. Love Him, Love Them is one ministry on the ground trying to help.
We have 6 different locations. We have schools, orphanages, churches. We opened a hospital in the middle of a global pandemic. And it's unbelievable. We're responsible for over 5,000 children.
Founder Linda Gunter says they have dozens of children ready to come to the U.S.
We have 101 children who have already been matched. They have adoptive families here in the United States. The families here in the U.S. already know the kids. The kids already know the families. And yet, because of what's happened in the last 2 weeks, we can't get them out. We can't get them out.
The problem is paperwork.
We have played by the rules, for lack of a better term, done everything exactly the way we're supposed to do. And yet we can't get that final piece of paper to get out. Why can't we get it? They closed the embassy. So we can't get into the embassy to get that final stamp.
She's asking anyone who will to sign a petition with the National Council for Adoption. And if you want to take it even a step further, you can write to the U.S. State Department and your congressman here in Washington. The goal is to get the government's attention and persuade it to take action on behalf of these children.
We just need to make some noise. We need to make some noise.
Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Now, if you'd like to sign the petition or reach out to the State Department, we've got information for you included in this story on our website. You can find it at cbnnews.com. The Biden administration announced a dramatic rise in auto emission standards Wednesday. The White House wants more Americans to buy electric cars to improve air quality and to fight climate change. But with unsold electric vehicles piling up on car lots, some auto dealers say the market is not ready. CBN's Dale Hurd explains.
It's being called the most ambitious plan in U.S. history to eliminate auto emissions.
Today marks a historic win for public health, for the environment, and for the future of our country.
The Environmental Protection Agency is requiring automakers to reduce emissions by over 7 billion metric tons to push the car industry to produce more electric vehicles, with the goal of 2 out of 3 new car purchases being EVs in just 8 years. The White House backed off an even harder, earlier push toward electric vehicles because of its unpopularity in an election year. But should the White House and the EPA be telling automakers what kind of cars to sell to consumers? A lot of auto dealers don't think so. EVs made up less than 10% of car sales last year. And with unsold inventory of electric cars piling up at dealerships, 5,000 auto dealers sent a letter to the White House in January asking it to tap the brakes on its push toward EVs. Rick Germain, president of Germain Automotive Partnership in Columbus, Ohio, says the demand for EVs just isn't there and won't be for a long time.
It's obviously the infrastructure, it's the range, it's the cost. Those are the 3 things that we hear from customers. There's just, for a lot of people, it's not a vehicle that makes sense.
While the White House claims the reduced emissions will help save the world from global warming, it was the bitter cold this past winter that had some EV owners rethinking their purchases because their cars did not have enough battery power to drive as far as advertised. There's also a lack of charging stations in many areas.
This is an idea whose time has not yet come.
Diana Furchtgott-Roth is an economist at the Heritage Foundation.
Look, this is great technology for people who don't have to drive very far and who have charging stations in their homes. But for other people, small businessmen, farmers who have to drive hundreds of miles a day, these vehicles do not work. They're not convenient. They're more costly. An F-150 Lightning pickup truck costs $26,000 more than the gasoline version. People can't afford those.
The EPA claims the move to EVs will improve everyone's health, especially kids.
That means less heart disease. That means longer lives.
But Furchtgott-Roth says Americans will now hang on to their old gasoline-powered cars longer, and that's not safer. She also accuses the White House of trying to create a market for EVs that just isn't there.
The federal government is spending your tax dollars to get manufacturers to make these vehicles, and then spending more of your tax dollars to get people to buy them, and they're still not selling.
Germain says the market should decide.
Instead of trying to force a certain sort of technology on customers that may not be ready for it.
Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Coming up, the greatest and most urgent threat facing the continent. That's what European leaders are calling Russia. We're going to have more on Vladimir Putin's threat to use nuclear weapons. Stay with us. You're watching CBN News Watch. Welcome back to CBN News Watch. Across Europe, leaders are calling Russia the greatest and most urgent threat facing the continent. Germany's intelligence chief warned recently Putin would not hesitate to attack a NATO member. The alliance is scrambling to prepare for a direct military confrontation with Moscow. George Thomas reports.
Dr. Simon Anglam, a leading British military expert and professor at the Department of War Studies at King's College in London, worries that his country's armed forces are not ready for a war with Russia.
What keeps me awake at night is the possibility of direct attacks on the United Kingdom, possibly by missiles or long-range bombers.
A February report by Parliamentary found Britain running low on its stockpile of weapons, munitions, tanks, and other fighting equipment. Plus, the military is losing personnel faster than they can recruit them. It comes amid warnings that NATO countries may have just 3 years to prepare for all-out war with Russia.
We have virtually no defence against missile attack. We have limited numbers of fighters to defend ourselves from bombers. This will need to be rectified if we're going to continue to take the stance that we do against Russia.
Since Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine,
we are combat ready. We can deter, and if deterrence fails, we are ready to fight.
NATO militaries have been getting ready to fight.
All stations, focus a little bit. Calm down.
In January, the alliance launched Steadfast Defender 24, its largest military exercise since the Cold War.
The first part of Steadfast Defender 2024 is about getting things across the Atlantic. And then the second part is about trying to get stuff, once it's arrived, over to the central and eastern states.
More than 90,000 troops from all 32 NATO allies are taking part in the exercise. 50 naval assets will move across Europe. More than 80 air platforms and 1,000+ combat vehicles are also being deployed.
This is undertaken near the Russian border, let's call it, near the frontier line, to show the East, show Moscow that NATO means business.
Of the 90,000 troops taking part in NATO's steadfast defense, the British government here has deployed some 20,000 soldiers from the Royal Navy, British Army, and Royal Air Force. The exercise will take place primarily along NATO's eastern flank, with particular focus on countries like Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania.
I think of all the NATO states, they are the ones who are the most aware of the potential threat that they face, and they have been for 30 years.
The exercise will test the alliance on its speed in moving massive numbers of troops and equipment across the lines to defend that eastern flank. Finland, which shares a 830-mile border with Russia, joined NATO in April 2023. Sweden became the 32nd member of the alliance this week. Both countries have troops deployed in the exercise. Last week, Swedish and Finnish Marines conducted amphibious operations from a U.S. Navy warship high above the Arctic Circle, honing their readiness skills.
This needs a lot of coordination so that we can work together, operate together in this complex environment.
Steadfast Defender is expected to last through May, aimed at showing that the alliance can defend all of its territory up to its borders with Russia. George Thomas, CBN News, London.
Still ahead, streaming fans of The Chosen are still waiting for the release of Season 4, but it is making a huge impact in prisons already. We're going to show you how. Plus, we've got some good news to share for The Chosen fans just in time for Easter weekend. Stay with us. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. As we reported last week, streaming of Season 4 of The Chosen is delayed due to financial and legal reasons. Now, while those issues are being worked out, The Chosen will show again nationwide in theaters during the Easter holiday. Episodes 1 through 3 will be available on March 28th, followed by episodes 4 through 6 on the 29th, and episodes 7 and 8 will be in theaters on Saturday, March 30th. And while streaming is continuing to be worked out, one group is working to get the popular television series about the life of Jesus and his disciples to viewers. It's aiming to reach 1 billion people, including one overlooked population that is being shown now to inmates in prison across the country. CBN's Billy Hallowell has this story.
Dallas Jenkins, creator of The Chosen, recently shared that Season 4 would be delayed to its loyal streaming audience. While various issues are holding up the general release, Stan Jantz of the Come and See Foundation tells CBN News the new season is transforming lives.
There are some prisons where they can watch on iPads. It's approved and they can watch just that content. But where they can watch it in community, they're seeing tremendous results.
This came about thanks to a partnership with Prison Fellowship, which ministers to inmates and their families.
We're seeing that this is a tool that they're using to engage these inmates and then, as chaplains, then take them through that discipleship journey.
In addition to those screenings, Prison Fellowship President and CEO Heather Rice-Minus says The Chosen is also available on Floodlight, a streaming platform for inmates created during the COVID-19 pandemic. The impact has been profound.
One of my favorite stories of this partnership has been at the Carol Vance Unit, our very first Prison Fellowship Academy, where we have men going through a year-long transformation process, really digging into why they came here to prison. And it's been so exciting for them. They've had these watch parties of the seasons as they've come out. And we've just been seeing such amazing transformation in the men as a result of the opportunity to see the authentic Jesus. And really being able to resonate with the disciples that Jesus chose to be part of the greatest awakening the world's ever known. And I think they really resonate with that in the position that they're in.
Rice Minus believes bringing the chosen into this journey is scriptural and offers healing by pointing inmates to lasting hope in Christ.
I look to Hebrews 13, which says, remember those in prison as if you were there with them. That's our call, is to know that Jesus came for everyone. And he especially, as so brilliantly demonstrated in the Chosen series, he especially came for the least and the lost.
As for Jance, he prays the Chosen's impact stretches even further.
And for every prisoner, there's a family, right? There are people that are involved with that person. And I think that not just what happens in the prison and with that individual, but then it can also reverberate through the communities that they're a part of or have been a part of. And I think that healing that can take place too, of maybe there's been resentment or confusion or whatever kind of happens when someone is incarcerated. And yet this healing that can take place, I think it gives hope.
In addition to making the message of the Chosen available in prisons and churches, Come and See Foundation is helping to take it worldwide by translating the program into 600 languages. Billy Hollowell, CBN News.
Stay with us. Your Friday Faithful is coming up next.
Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
Time now for your Friday Faithful, and I want to leave you with this message as we wrap another week together. It's a personal twist on the lyrics of an old hymn. Here's my take. Father alone, you know all about it. Father alone, you understand why. I'll cheer up and I'll cheer up my brother. Together, we can live in the sunshine. I don't have to understand it all. I simply need to trust that you, my good, good Father, you know why. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel. You can find them there at any time, as well as online. That is cbnnews.com. Take a moment, reach out and touch us, and let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us. That address is newswatch@cbn.com. You can also talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We certainly would love to hear from you. Make this a fabulous Friday. Have yourself a wonderful weekend, and then come on back. We look forward to seeing you back here, same time Monday. Goodbye and God bless.